down, and all my soul so weary. When troubles come and my heart burden be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to much more than I can be.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for coming today. I can tell you for a fact that this is absolutely stunning to see all of you here for Paul. He would have just loved this. Before we start, I want to introduce someone that meant a lot to Paul, two people actually who he loved dearly, Reverend Francis Jones of Feed the Children. And as you know, Paul was very touched by everything that he saw when he went to Central America and to Africa. In fact, one of the things he loved so much was the fact that in Africa, a little boy was named Paul after him then. Sue has asked for no flowers, but for donations to feed the children. What a wonderful gesture that would be. So everyone at this time, I'd like to introduce Larry Jones.
Yes, he would. On May the 27th, 2009, a giant tree fell. And it's a giant tree that's really going to be missed. Paul was a great man, as you know. He is survived by Susie, who was clapping. And he said that she was the greatest magician he had ever seen. She could make money disappear, reappear in her closet, in her jewelry box. It was amazing. He said she never made it to the stage, but boy, was she a magician. And also by Emma, and also Jessica, who is in Australia. He graduated from St. Chad's College in the UK. He's a member of the Royal Air Force. He was with the Combined Service Entertainment and toured Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. And believe it or not, he started out in comedy and opened for Bob Hope, Johnny Mathis, and also Liberace. He received 12 awards in Australia. They're called the Logie Awards, which is like our Emmys. And he had the opportunity to be blessed by having the presenters being John Wayne, David Cassidy, Gina Lollobrigida, and also Sammy Davis Jr. He produced over 500 television programs in Australia. And for 33 years, he was partners with Dave McKenzie and Associated Television. I considered Paul, or considered myself, not a client, but a friend. And this is going to be a surprise to David. Paul says to me, he said, "Do you like pancakes?" I said, "I sure do." He said, "Well, you've got to understand that David told me only take you to really, really nice places. So this one we're going to, we can't put it on the expense account. We're going to IHOP." And we went to IHOP. And Paul paid for it. You know, you discover who a person is when you're off camera. And when someone else would be filming and Paul had done his job, he and I had conversations. And Paul was definitely a man of faith. I'm not going to share those conversations because those were between Paul and myself. We're here to celebrate his life. And did you know in the middle of the word life is the word if? And all of us have ifs. And when you have an if, it leads to a why. And let me give you something about why. I had a very religious and spiritual mother. I was very fortunate. And when her and Dad were put into a nursing home, she said, I have one request. And I said, what's that, Mother? She said, I want your father and I to die at the same time. I said, you got to be kidding. That usually only happens in a car wreck. And she said, I don't want to live without him. And I scratched my head. And then, when my father passed away 2 years before my mother, all I ever heard was, why? God didn't answer that particular prayer. And so today, we've all got ifs. And we've got whys. Let me comfort you with these words. Of all the scripture that's in the Bible, and there's a lot, this is the one I wish somebody had had a hidden tape recorder. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God? Believe also in me. Now in my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again, so that where I am, you may be also. And Billy Sunday, who was a Major League Baseball player who turned preacher, put it this way. He said, don't let someone hang a for rent sign on your mansion in heaven. I want you to know something today. There will not be a for rent sign on Paul's mansion. He's occupying it today. Now, one of the things that you discover in life is that where do we go from here? And Sue and Emma, I know this past 4 or 5 days have been a blur for you. I know that there will be times that you will say Paul and Dad. And that's natural. You go into the grieving process. I ran across I'm one who just loves different translations of the Bible. And I ran across one by Phillips from 1 Corinthians 13, and it says this. At present, we men and women are looking at a puzzling reflection in the mirror. In other words, it's just all blurry. The time will come when we shall see reality whole and face to face. Now at present, all I know is a little fraction of the truth. But the time will come when I shall know it as fully as God knows me and I know him. And so I want you to know that during the days ahead, you will be comforted by friends, but you'll also be comforted by God. And one of the things the Lord said before he left to his followers was, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, give I to you. There was a lady who was very sick. Her minister came to the hospital and said, do you have any last requests? And she said, yes, I want to be buried with a fork in my hand. And he said, what in the world? Why do you want a fork in your hand? And she said, knowing God, the best is yet to come. And I want to be ready. Ladies and gentlemen, our good friend Paul has a fork in his hand. The best is yet to come.
Can't see a place Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus, fructus ventris, ventris tui, Iesus. Ave Maria.
Okay, the first thing I want to say is, Paul, we paid for air conditioning, it's just not working. This is not working. We also had some technical problems. I'm sure you expected that. You know, I said before, he would have just loved this. And it's just such a wonderful comfort. I know Sue, Emma, and everybody, and Laura, and Elizabeth, and myself, to see everybody here from all parts of the country, around the world. It's just, what an incredible tribute to this meeting. I'm going to do something I don't usually do. I'm going to have to read this to get through it. Paul Sharratt was a brother to me. We have shared so many great times and fabulous memories over the last 33 years. But as all of you know here, he was just a wonderful man. Everybody loved Paul. In fact, there was a saying around the office, everyone loves Paul. You could go into a meeting really mad and angry, and you'd come out happy, just by working with him. It was absolutely amazing. Never saw anything like it. He really loved people and making them happy. What a gift to have been around this extraordinary man. Maybe we hired it by the hour, I'm not sure. Paul was a producer extraordinaire. He was able to produce anything from a command performance for the Queen of England to kids shows. If I was working with Paul on this event, he would want to be it. He would want it light, fast, and funny, and he would also want a very good venue. So it's with that in mind, we continued. When we were looking for a place to do this service, we came here and saw this room. And of course, I didn't want to have it here because this is most probably the site of one of the worst production disasters I've ever been involved in the theater next to here. And I said, absolutely not. And I walked into the garden, and we knew this was the right place. Why I'm so sure that it is because several years ago, Paul and I scouted this location. And he said, David, I love this room and garden. We have to do something here someday. And so we are. How prophetic. And that's why we know Paul would approve of this venue. And this brings me and us to a very important point for today. Paul would not want you leaving here remembering the sad parts of this service. He wants laughs, applause, and good memories to be shared with each other out in the garden today, and for all of us to be happy, as he would be embarrassed if it was only a sad time that we all had today. Speaking of laughing, let's talk about a few stories that don't have Sue in them as a funny object. Years ago, when I first met Paul, and it's been over 33 years, Laura and I went to his office in Australia, and he had invited us for lunch. And I said, oh, great, because I'm really hungry. And we went into his office, and we sat there, and there was no lunch. And finally, Judy Ferber walked in with a plate of sandwiches. And the plate was about this big. And it had 3 small sandwiches with the crust cut off, one of them being cucumber. And they had cucumber and bread and butter on them. And Laura said, well, and Paul left the room. And Laura said, well, I guess what we'll do is we'll eat your sandwiches, and then when mine come, I'll give you one of mine. And we ate the sandwiches. And Paul came back in the room and said, where are the sandwiches? And we said, I ate them. And he said, well, those were everyone's sandwiches. And we said, you've got to be kidding. And he said, no. He said, those were everybody's. And we said, you can't feed people that. And he said, well, everyone was supposed to have one sandwich. And so ever since that occurred, he always referred to us as the hungry Americans. You know, I have so many stories. I tried to think of stories that I could share with you that no one else might share with you today. I had so many, and you know, it's just a wonderful thing to be able to think of Paul and you smile. Even when he wasn't there, you'd smile. Because when we were producing the Serendipity Singers show, and we were in Australia, Paul called me in and said, what do you mean you get a catered lunch for the crew? I'm sure some of you can appreciate these comments. And I said, oh, in America, we cater lunch for the crew. I said, well, I've never heard of such a stupid thing. And I said, no. He said, well, that'll cost a lot of money, and I don't have it in my budget here. He said, Channel 9 doesn't have that kind of a budget. And I said, well, you have tea, don't you? He said, well, that's different. I said, but we have, you know, to have a catered lunch. He said, all right, on location. I said, yes, absolutely. So we're way in the heck and gone out in the middle of nowhere in Australia on a big bus. And it's the first day, and it's about 1:30. I keep waiting for lunch. And Deidre Gray and Naz were out there, and we were hungry. And I said, Deidre, we gotta feed these guys. Where is lunch? She said, oh, just be a few minutes. We're in the middle of nowhere. I thought, maybe she knows of a place. And we stopped the bus. Dee got off the bus with Naz, got under the bus, and took out 6 loaves of bread, some cheese and butter, all from provided catering. And as my last good thought about Paul, as I lovingly have to say, he loved to perform, he loved to entertain. He was just a great entertainer. And I'll tell you how things were in our office. We had intellectual conversations. We got in a debate with John Ross, who has also been Paul's friend for over 33 years, who he loved dearly, adored. He thought John could fix anything, that John was a genius. And we got into an argument with John over a television special we were doing, World's Funniest Moments. And John said, no, nobody thinks fart jokes are funny. Well, I said, Paul, you know, I'm not so sure. And so this great creative conversation went on about this subject. Until my daughter introduced this lovely fart machine that was remote controlled. And Paul said, I'll prove it to you. And I said, well, how are you going to do it? I'm going to go up and down the elevator. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I'm going to go up and down the elevator. I'm going to take that. He said, I'll bet you I get everybody to laugh. And so he takes the machine and goes up and down the elevator. Well, that was great until, as some of you know, that on the second floor of our building, the Marlboro School is located. And there are teachers. And sometimes our elevator doesn't do what you tell it. And Paul had pushed the button and it went down. And as the elevator door opened and the teachers were coming in, so did the machine go off. And I've never let Paul forget that because ever since, none of those teachers have ever taken the elevator. They walk up to the second floor. I want to tell you a few things you may not know about Paul. He loved London, live theater, he loved cookies, Tim Tams, and other sweets and Chinese food. I have to tell you, the first time Paul ever stayed here in America, he came in and said, he stayed in Marina Del Rey, he came in and said, yeah, I'm in my room, you know, he said, I'm on a diet, I'm trying to lose weight. That's good, we are too. We're having a time on Nutrisystem. Paul said, okay, I'm going to eat my room. So we dropped him off, and then Laura had to go in to get something. She had forgotten, and she went and knocked on the door, opened the door, and there laid out was every junk food you could possibly imagine as far as the eye could see, every sugar cereal, every Twinkie that God ever invented in America. And he said, these are good. He loved his little dog, Sharratt. Loved technical gadgets. He was a news and information junkie. Loved the circus. Loved clowns. Loved Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello. Was an expert on music hall history. And as a small boy, lived through the nightmare of World War II and the bombing of London, which forever impacted his life. He loved Australia and had so many friends and fans there. But what you may not know is that Paul was a very well-known TV and stage star there, as well as one of the pioneers of Australian television. The reason you may not know this is that it's something very rare that we find anywhere. He was a very humble man. Very humble. And of course, the great loves of Paul's life, Emma and Jessica, his beautiful daughters, and his lovely wife, Sue. Emma and Jessica, you lit up your dad's life. He adored you both, and of course, was very proud of you, and was so happy that you both were here. Sue, Paul and I talked often about how he loved you so much, and how special your relationship has grown over the years. So, and to all of you who worked on a daily basis with this amazing man, he truly cared about you and took great pride in working with you every day. I know this personally, as he told me countless times. He really, really, really truly loved you. This is just another amazing example of how he thought and cared, How rare is this to find someone like Paul? There are so many people who have asked to share a story today, and we want you to do that after this service, outside your garden, with other friends, as Paul would really have liked that, especially when you're talking about him. It's nice. I'm not eloquent or smart enough to find the words to express how much we all love and miss you, Paul. I pray to God that in some way I have helped us all who have experienced this loss today by sharing some memories and thoughts that I personally knew about Paul. And that we know you are looking down from heaven, waiting for the applause from your loving family and friends for a life well lived as an example to others. God bless you.
Asked me to read a couple of emails that came in from overseas, and as I was looking over them in the car this morning, coming over here, I'm like, oh, I hope I don't cry. I got to get through this. And my daughter says to me, Mom, do what I do when I try not to cry. Just color on your hand. Anyway, as some of you know, we did several television specials overseas with Sir Roger Moore, and he sent a lovely email to Sue, and I'd like to read that now. Dearest Susie, an hour or so ago, I was awakened here in London by a phone call from Christian in Dubai to tell me the sad news. I then opened my emails and discovered your most moving letter of true love. Dear Paul was, as everyone will concur, a most amazing man who spread nothing but joy and happiness to all of us that had the good fortune to know him. It's impossible for anyone who has not loved and lost a partner to comprehend the depth of your suffering, and no one will deny you your right to grief. But if it's any comfort for you to know, there are hundreds of us sharing in your grief. We all loved and admired Paul. And now that love and admiration is for you. Christina joins me in sending you our most sincere condolences. God bless you, Roger. And my next email here is from Judy Ferber on the Gold Coast in Australia. She was Paul's business partner and best friend, referred to, as she says, as his fourth wife, wife number 4. In Australia, and this came in from her. To those of you in the United States who may not know too much about Paul's life back here in Oz, I'd like to tell you a little of how much he meant to those of us privileged to have him here in our lives. I was referred to by Paul as wife number 4, having worked with him for over 30 years in his company, StarCast Productions. He was not only my business partner, but my adored best friend. He and I shared thousands and thousands of hours together, producing shopping center events, television shows, and maybe our finest achievement, the first ever Gold Coast Festival, which ran for 20 years and gave residents and visitors to our tourist city around 200 events and activities, most of them free. Paul, simply the best MC I've ever known, would hold our live shows together and could, as we always laughed about, talk under wet cement if required. At the same time, he had his Music Hall Follies, a nightly live show where he would regale the audience with old jokes, always clean, and people would leave the theater with huge smiles on their faces. Hardworking, dedicated, innovative, kindly, generous, this was Paul. He fostered new talent in the entertainment industry and employed hard luck cases simply because they needed the money. He was on television, radio, wrote for the newspaper, won countless awards, and he even ran for mayor of the city. Thank the Lord he didn't get in. Showbiz would have lost a great. When Paul passed away, we all, who loved and respected him so much, asked where the next batch of versatile, clever entertainers are who can emulate Paul. And the answer is, there are none. As I continue my career as events manager, I acknowledge I was taught by a master, and at times I can feel his presence, making sure I cross all the T's and dot the I's. I went into my office after Susie rang me in the early hours of Thursday morning, and as I began to ring the media and Paul and Susie's friends, Paul was assuredly sitting by my shoulder, making sure I left no one out. The calls and the messages I have received, not to mention those to Jessica and Rhonda, have softened this awful blow. And if you could see the wonderful news stories and tributes, you would know how very much this wonderful man was loved and how much he contributed to the show business industry. I shall forever miss Paul in my life, but know he is up there watching over us all. Quote, and of course, brought to you at enormous expense, unquote. A line he used to conclude his music hall show each night. To Sue, you know how much we love and are with you. To David, Lauren, Elizabeth, thanks for being his other family. And to my darling Emma, my third daughter, no words need be said. You know how I feel. His memorial service here is bound to be an event full of laughter, tears, memories, and toast to a wonderful human being. Bye-bye, Polly Pooh, from your fourth wife, Jude, and Brian, Kate, Lucy, Chloe, Jason, Rob, and little Isabella, who unfortunately will never know you. Kiss, 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 kiss.
He was not only my father, let me say it again. He was not only the best father in the world, he was my best friend, and he was a hero. The only thing that is holding me up here today is knowing that my daddy is watching me and telling me to be strong for him. I believe in my heart that Dad was at peace with everything, and he knew it was time for him to leave us. Even when it came to passing away, Dad was considerate and thinking of others. He would never have left us unless he was 100% confident that his 3 girls would be okay. Sue is rock solid in her sobriety. Jessica has met a wonderful man to marry next year, and I just got engaged about a month ago. He knew the 3 of us were taken care of, and he knew that he could leave us and we would be looked after. My wedding was planned for September this year, and Daddy, just as you would have wanted, all plans are full steam ahead. I know you would not have wanted me to stop. I know you would have wanted me to go on and get married, and I'm going to do that for you. Dad, I promise you I'm even going to keep you a spare seat for you, all right? Just promise me you'll come down on September 26th and be with me and watch over me on my special day. As per your wish, your 3 girls will remain as tight as ever. We will never, ever, ever let you down. The only thing I can't promise you is that Sue's driving skills will improve. My sister summed it up perfectly in a newspaper article I read the other day after Dad passed away. You could go to him with anything. I always thought he could fix anything and everything. Whatever the problem was, he was able to fix it. He was like Superman. I am going to miss him every minute of every day. I'm going to miss how we used to eat Spam and breads and pickles together. I'm going to miss our 10 a.m. coffees every day at work. I'm going to miss the way he used to refer to me as his little treasure. I'm going to miss the way he used to come and sit in my office and say, I've had a good day. Not today, but I have had a good day. I love that no matter what the situation or the problem was, he was able to make everything okay. And at the same time put you into fits of hysterics. One thing I won't miss is his love for clowns, and even knowing they scared me, he still loved them. Everybody loved this man. He touched so many people in all different walks of life because of his amazing ways. It's hard to explain how amazing this man was, but by the reaction of people from all across the world after his passing, I've got a pretty good idea that the world agrees with me. My last memory of my dad was Tuesday afternoon after work, when he put his arms around me and we went down 5 floors in the elevator together and all the way to our cars. As we did every night, we said we loved each other and we kissed each other goodbye and said, see you tomorrow. That is a memory I will never forget for the rest of my life. But Dad didn't want us to be sad. He'd be saying out there, the show must go on. I can promise you all, this show will go on, but it will never be the same.
Can you believe the dickhead left the glasses at home?
What else is new? Oh, I think it. I think I'm going to get a light. I'm really. It is, isn't it? Okay. Paulie will help me.
As I began to write this, my mind was literally full of zillions of thoughts and memories of the magnificent life I have led with my Paulie. So it was terribly difficult to know where to begin. In 1979, I walked into Paul's life. Oh my God, wasn't he a cradle snatcher? Shut up, tree. He always told people that I was 18 when we met. In actual fact, I was a 17-year-old, bikini-clad virgin who just walked into his world. It was love at first sight for me. He literally took my breath away. Fast forward to the morning of Thursday, May 28th, 2009, when I opened my eyes to the realization that this was the first time in 33 years the physical body of my soulmate was not laying beside me. Paul left me a box to be opened once he passed, and in there was his life's truths, along with his last wishes. And he asked me to fulfill these on his behalf. This is what Paul wanted me to share with you. Okay. What a wonderful life I have had. And although I know I have made mistakes, there are few things that I regret or would change in my life. My early life was spent with my loving parents and in a family environment that was very special. My 2 previous marriages contained some wonderful times, and Susie knows that I have always regretted any sadness that I may have brought to Joan or Rhonda. They have both been very supportive over the years, and for this I am always grateful.
I must have a special word for Jude, who was my friend and work partner for over 30 years. She is just a wonderful person, and it is almost unbearable that we spent so many years together, and I can hardly remember a difference that amounted to more than a discussion. I want Susie to tell you how much I respect you and love you, and I hope you will have a wonderful and long life.
David, Laura, and Elizabeth, aka Sheila Lily Brown. They know how much I love them. And what can we say to David in thanks for the wonderful life he gave us in America? Just when it all seemed over, he came along and gave us a whole new life. Thank you all, and thank you so much for everything. And I hope that I can look after your Elizabeth from my next home. All my friends and fellow performers will know how much I thank them for their support, and I love them all.
Need to do the big swap, sweetheart.
I think it's only appropriate, given the moments we've shared, that we share the glasses too. Susie's asked me to read some of Paul's wishes and last thoughts that are about the family. Now we come to the close family, Emma and Jessica. What can I say except that you have been a constant joy to me all your lives, and I love you both very much. I am sorry to have to tell you that there is not a favorite. You are both so different and so special in your own ways. I don't have to leave you any last advice, as I brought you up to know my standards, and you have kept them very well. Enjoy your lives and always remember all the great times we have had together and how much you have meant to me. Be kind to each other and look after each other. I really, really want that. Now to my little Susie, whom I have seen grown into such a wise and worldly person almost over 30 years. I do not have to write down how much I love her, as this has been more than proved by our life together. In spite of some of the ups and downs, there cannot have been many happier marriages or two people more together. Thank you, Susie, for all your care. And I cannot put into words how proud I am of you. The best epitaph you can build for me is to go on developing and living your life as you do now. I have no fear that you will ever drink again, but of course, that is one of the great things you can do in my memory. Remain sober and help others as you always have done. I am so proud of you. I sit here with tears in my eyes that I may not be here to share my life with you. If I am with the angels, and he is, which I hope to be, you can be assured that I will be doing all that I can to look after you. Please stay close to the girls. The four of us are such a special group, and you know how to look after them. Tell Ginny, David, and our precious Carly, and all your family, I love them. At this stage, I am unable to see the screen as the thoughts fill my eyes with sadness. I know that one day, be it now or in the future, you will read this letter, and I hope it will tell you how much I love you and what a wonderful friend you have been. Nothing exists in my mind except the fun I have had with you and what a wonderful wife you have been. Go on, sweetheart, and enjoy the rest of your life to the full capacity. Your grief will pass in God's good time, and that will leave you as a free spirit to enjoy your life and add quality to other people's, as you have always done. No eBay or PayPal for a while. I leave you with all happiness and no regrets, your Bunny.
Sue and Emma asked me to read a letter from Jessica, Paul's daughter in Australia, and I told them I'd be honored. I'd do anything for them and my Papa Bear. This is a letter from Jess. If I could have just one wish in this world today, it would be that every little girl could have a father like Emma and I had. A father who loved and supported you no matter what the circumstances. Emma and I were lucky enough to have that. Obviously, over the last few days, I've reflected on my gifted 30 years with Dad. As you could imagine, my mind fills with memories that are irreplaceable and are now locked away inside my heart forever. If I had to share one memory, it would be at my senior school graduation. After the service finished, we walked outside and Dad hugged me and told me he was very proud of me. I have never forgotten those words, and I don't think I ever will. Dad always told us how much he loved us, but somehow we didn't need to even hear that we just knew. I think that maybe Dad, over the last few months, came to realize a couple of things. One, that Sue has more strength and courage than anyone could imagine. And that now, Emma and I, both being engaged, we were all safe. In a way, I guess he feels that his job is done with us, and he has gone to another place to share his love. Although I am far away from you all, you are not far from my heart. Thank you to all of you who have given kind words and who are there supporting Sue and Emma. We are very strong and will get through this, and will continue to be guided by our light and strength that was Dad. Sue has lost a dear husband and soulmate. Emma and I lost a dad and a hero, but heaven has gained a true gentleman. Love to all, Jess.
I was spoiled from the start because I married the Rolls Royce the first time. However, I used to say to my Paulie, the one and only thing that I couldn't stand about you was your preoccupation with farting and major production of noxious fumes. The walls and elevators of Associated Television will never be the same again, as Paul would drop these deadly little surprises, then proceed to exit the elevator at the speed of knots, just in time for some poor unsuspecting little bastard to walk in. Hey Dee. On the evening of Tuesday, May 26th, my Paul was getting more and more severe chest pain, and by 11 p.m, which was our usual turning off the light time, he was unable to lay down for any period of time at all. That is how we got to talk every half hour or so, and we talked about many things. We cuddled and kissed and just held each other. At some point during that 6-hour time frame, I told him that I felt badly about something I did to him when I was still drinking and wanted to address it. Before I could say anything, he put his arms around me and he said, "Darling, over the past 10 years of my life, you have repaid me with love and kindness, and you are the most wonderful wife anyone could ever have wished for. If you have any doubt in your heart that I am not telling you the truth, then the blowjob you gave me on Sunday really made up for everything."